Hi there, I'm Zoot Java. A few points about the dynamic Democrat duo, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. At the Democratic debate, Kamala Harris said to Joe Biden, "I do not believe you are a racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it was personal and hurtful, to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and careers on the segregation of race in this country. You also worked with them to oppose busing. And you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day, and that little girl was me." She then shot him a piercing, hateful look that had Biden return the look with wide-eyed surprise. At the next debate, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard tore into Kamala Harris, stating by attacking her record that Harris is always so proud of, by pointing out a few ugly truths. Gabbard said she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations, then laughed about it when asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. There is no excuse for that, and the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology." Kamala stood there, looking down at the podium, shaking her head as if to imply, "No, that isn't true." The odd thing about it was that Kamala Harris had the opportunity to engage Tulsi Gabbard, to deny the charges that she made about her, or at least to defend herself in any way whatsoever to anything that was said about her behavior as the prosecutor. Instead of going after Tulsi Gabbard like the attack shark she had shown herself to be earlier, she merely stood in silence so as to prove that the charges Tulsi Gabbard made about her were 100% accurate. After the debate, however, when the media asked about this, she and her campaign spokesperson viciously called Tulsi Gabbard a Putin apologist, a spy, a Trojan horse. Gabbard later stated that this is how Kamala Harris goes after anyone who is critical of her or her record, with Gabbard herself being a current major in the armed forces who has served 2 deployments in the Middle East. Gabbard said, "If this is the way she goes and smears me, imagine what she'd do to anyone else when she becomes president." And the worst thing is, as Gabbard also pointed out, these are not opinions of her. They are recorded facts of her record as the Attorney General that she says she's so proud of. When Joe Biden was accused by Tara Reade and other accusers, Kamala Harris stated in April 2019 that she believes Joe Biden's accusers. She stated, "I believe them, and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it." Kamala Harris said during an interview where she answered questions from the audience that when elected president that she would give Congress 100 days to get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws, and if they fail to do it, then I will take executive action. These are just a few of the oddities, for want of a better term, that I chose to speak about. I know some people will call me a misogynist for going after Kamala Harris in this fashion, but I don't care. To be quite honest, I would be all for Tulsi Gabbard because she at least has integrity and genuine compassion for the people of America, where Harris will say anything or do anything to get into the White House. With Gabbard in the military and having seen combat on 2 occasions, I value her opinion when it comes to military matters. I just happen to disagree with her on a few other items. My opinion on this, though? Well, at the debate where Kamala put on that little girl speech and act, she stated that she didn't think that Biden was a racist, but then attacked him for praising senators famous for racist policies and backing them up with the busing that affected poor Kamala. So I find it difficult to believe that she doesn't really think Joe Biden isn't a racist. She also admitted to smoking marijuana while listening to Snoop Dogg and Tupac in college, but she's obviously a liar as they hadn't released any music for at least another 2 years. But again, she locked up many, many black men on simple possession charges, which are the types of things that they are trying to be reformed in prison. And aren't you supposed to be helping people of color? Isn't that the idea that they chose you because you are a person of color? Well, you should have helped some of the people of color when you had a chance. Probably the most frightening thing she did was to block the evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to. To do something like this goes beyond a person being a jerk. To send an innocent person to death row knowingly blocking their evidence is beyond evil. She's not a human being and should definitely not be in the position of representing the entire population of the United States. And keeping people in prison to use them for cheap labor for the state is reprehensible. Just think of a person's mental state knowing that they should be freed but are kept as almost a chain gang mentality from an overzealous, self-serving prosecutor with political ambitions. Then attacking and attempting to smear Tulsi Gabbard when facts, not opinions, about Harris were presented to her. Oddly enough, the gun sales have gone through the roof lately as a result of the stupidity of the Democrat-run cities defunding and getting rid of a number of police. People are buying guns for protection, because that was always the argument from the leftists who wanted to get rid of all the guns. They would say, just call the police. Well, you can't do that when there either aren't any police or not enough to patrol even. A large portion of these new gun owners are, strangely enough, left-leaning Democrat voters who didn't want to have guns before. They aren't going to want somebody to take away their only defense now against an ever-increasing criminal element provided by the Democratic politicians who are disbanding police departments. But even stranger than this, when Kamala said that she believes the accusers of Biden's sexual offenses, you have to wonder how she could swallow her dignity to work with him and not worry about him coming after her. In my humble opinion, this was the most ill-thought-out idea that the Democratic Party had in putting these two together. And now for the part you've all been waiting for, my bad joke. I guess for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, politics is like sex. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it. Anyways, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my content on all your social media because I get censored by all the usual suspects. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I upload the identical content on BitChute, which can be found by clicking on the link in the subject box below. Until later, have a Java on Zoot.